Hello everyone, welcome into the Blitz. My name is Michael Barneau and I am your leader on this expedition that we'll be on today. If you're enjoying this content, make sure you like the video, hit the little subscribe button, and click the bell if you want to be notified in case of future videos. So, with all that said, let's talk about a couple other things. On the channel, I will be getting a microphone soon, and we'll be upgrading this camera just as soon as we can. But bear with me. I'm always happy to take a donation if someone wants to speed this process up. But anyway, let's move on to today's topic. Today we're going to talk about a coordinator who's near and dear to my heart, and because his style fits mine perfectly, and I think that he is one of the best coordinators out there in all of college football. And that is, of course, Todd Orlando, who was kind of under the radar let go by Texas this past season, and a move I still can't quite understand, especially once I looked a little closer. Now, on this channel, I don't shoot from the hip. Everything I say on here is something that I believe I can back up, and I do my research beforehand. And after looking at this case closer, like I always had thoughts about it, but then I looked closer, and I went in, did some film study, looked at the situation, and I honestly can't understand why Texas fired him. So, to give you an idea and to explain why I think that, let's just talk about this whole thing starting from the top. So, it all started in 2018, well, the Sugar Bowl last year, when Texas beat Georgia in that game down in Atlanta, in a game that they were, Texas was favored, or correction, they were the underdog by 12 points in that game to Georgia. No one gave them a chance. Well, they show up, and Todd Orlando's defense steals the show, which is what they do, and we'll get to his philosophy in a while. But they beat the crap out of a team that likes to win by running the ball down people's throat, and that's exactly how Georgia had won all year. Now, the quarterback that they had, he was a good player, but they win that game. The defense then loses 8 starters. Sam Ehlinger said famously after the Georgia game about Texas that we're back thing. Well, it turns out they weren't actually back. Now, but some of that was bad fortune, but we'll talk about it in just a minute. Of the Texas lost 8 starters on defense. 8 starters. That was ranked 123rd in the country in terms of returning production. All right? So they lose all that, and of the 3 guys that they got back, they only had all 3 of them healthy for 3 full games. So the season starts out, they play Louisiana Tech, and they kill them. They don't give up a point until the 4th quarter. Louisiana Tech, for people who don't keep track of small teams, went 10-3 this last year. This was not some podunk, crappy small team that they did this to. This was a 10-3 Louisiana Tech team coached by Skip Holtz, and they dominated them. Again, Louisiana Tech didn't even score until the 4th quarter. They then had a game against LSU that did not go very well for them, but I mean, how many teams did play LSU well on defense this year? So that game went bad, and after that, the injury bug hit hard, as I mentioned before. Now, if you take a look at it, in November, all right, before they played TCU, I have attached an article down in the description where you can read more about this from November 4th before they played TCU, and it shows the depth chart. Take a look at this chart. That is a massive amount to try and overcome. And so, with all this going on, Todd Orlando can't be expected to put a great defense on the field. And sure enough, I mean, they still did not do poorly. I was surprised they didn't give up 50 with this many injuries. But anyway, the season ends, and it was obviously a very disappointing year. So Tom Herman knows he's got to fire somebody. He knows that somebody can't just be a position coach. It's got to be someone who played a big role in this thing. And Todd Orlando just happened to be the sacrificial lamb. He was the guy that, okay, let's just pin this on him. You know, and the thing is, for Tom Herman, if he ends up in these same shoes next year, it might be him getting the axe. But anyway, so Todd Orlando gets let go. Shortly thereafter, USC scoops him up. Now, I think this might be under the radar, possibly the best hire of the entire offseason. Because if you look at what USC is missing, You look at that Iowa game. I mean, really, that game encapsulates what USC has largely been about on defense since Pete Carroll left. It's when Carroll left, he took the physicality out the door with him. USC has not looked like an intimidating, imposing defense in years. I mean, it has been asinine what has gone on in Southern California since Carroll left. He took off, took the defense with him. So the next thing that happens, they lose that Iowa game in a game that they got completely pushed around. Completely pushed around, and it really wasn't that big of a shock to most of us. Like SC has never been a very physical defense, and Iowa just exposed them in that game for what they were. So I see a team that needs this to happen. They need a guy to come in who is going to change that culture. I see the perfect match of a team that needs something and a guy who can provide it in Todd Orlando. I think that this is a home run hit for Clay Helton. If this is really the hire that could save Clay Helton's job. If Orlando comes in and he is able to do what I think he can do, then Clay Helton is going to survive. Now, a couple things about Todd Orlando's defense. I've been following him since 2015 when he coached at Houston with Tom Herman. And the biggest thing that stood out to me about his defense was how stout they were against the run game. You've heard me yammer about it a lot on this channel. You've heard me talk about it a lot. To me, it's a very important stat. And that is what they did. I watched Houston in a game against Oklahoma go in and push around a Power 5 team. Houston looked like the better, more physical team in that game. That is rare. Usually when a smaller conference team is able to beat a Power 5, especially an elite Power 5 like that, it's kind of by a finesse, walk around type thing. Like, it's kind of like how a smaller boxer will kind of jab at a bigger boxer. Like, that's kind of how it goes. The smaller team is able to, not stand toe-to-toe with them. Houston didn't just go toe-to-toe with Oklahoma. They beat the living crap out of them. If you were to go back and watch that game, Houston is the hammer all game, and Oklahoma's the nail. And what's even more amazing is that Houston only had one NFL player in that front seven. Granted, it was Ed Oliver, but still, that's one guy on an elite level, and you're just tossing an FBS team like that, an elite FBS team. So that was another game that proved to me that Orlando knows how to bring physicality to a unit. Now, the other thing that defines him, he uses a lot of slants, three-man fronts. Again, I've gone back and looked at the film just to make sure I saw what I saw. And the thing that stands out about him also is he always seems to be able to run a slant exactly into the place where the run game's going to go. I don't even know how he does it, but his defenses are very hard to run against. And so that, to me, alone makes him worth the hire. The other thing is, I just think I mentioned this before, he brings to USC what they need. They need a guy who's going to come in here and bring pride back to that program in a way that people are going to fear SC's defense again. Because the fact is, SC has not been elite on defense in years. So, this is one of the few bright spots in an offseason for Clay Helton that just seems to be getting worse by the day, and really even by the minute. Yeah, they just pulled in what was ranked, and I have the stat right here from Rivals.com that shows that SC has the 65th ranked recruiting class behind teams like East Carolina. Who would have ever thought? I mean, it just shows that SC doesn't recruit itself the way it used to. So there's that they're going to have to deal with. So if Clay Helton's going to have any hope of surviving, he needs this hire to work out. Now, I think that this is the best hire he possibly could have made. There's no one else who's available. There are no other coordinators, I think, who could make SC viable on that side of the ball again. And I think that Orlando is going to be the only hope SC is going to have for this next season. So, without any further ado, that will do it for this edition of The Blitz. As usual, I'm your host, Michael Barneau, and I hope to see you next time.